Part 112. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1114. Treat Idion immediately. This is of course impossible. Even if one of the doctors and patients was a legendary elder and the other was a level 19 warrior, and anyone could crush him to death with just a move, Gretel couldn't agree to it. He jumped up reflexively, stood in the middle, and shouted to stop. Do animal experiments first. Try it on animals first. Make sure the operation is proficient, make sure the effect is okay, and then treat people. The two elders looked at each other and smiled. After a moment, Elder Fahim raised his hand, pressed it down, and answered in a coaxing tone. Okay. We must start with animal experiments. Then let them catch a group of animals and practice them before treating them. Anyway, this guy has been sick for many years, and he will take at least a day or two. Right. This guy rolled his eyes at the elder. The most powerful warrior in the jungle needs to receive treatment, the elders need to be familiar with the treatment process, and a large number of experimental animals are needed, so everyone naturally has no problem. Grasp. Go get it? Even though they had already caught a wave before, the forest guards, indigenous people, and even the monsters still set off a vigorous catching craze. Isn't it just an animal? Don't you want to help sick animals? Just catch it? For 10 days, all kinds of lively and half-dead animals filled the animal room next to the old tree. The elves even had to urgently grow shrubs to prepare homes for these newly arrived animals. Greet was overjoyed. So many animals. So many different kinds of animals. Take samples of each type, and let Elder Fahim scan each type with an electron microscope. If you take pictures of various cells, you can write a good paper on the treatment of cancer cells. We have discovered a certain kind of special cells in both humans and animals. These cells will grow wildly and try their best to absorb nutrients from the body. Moreover, they will not be recognized as abnormal by the body, and treatment cannot kill them. Can even promote its growth. Under the illumination technique, Greet wrote quickly. Beside him, the oak staff stood quietly, stretching out a branch above his head. All postures are like peeping. Well, the master doesn't read it to me, and the master doesn't control me in writing the paper. As an oak stick with ideals, beliefs, and pursuits, if you want to keep track of the latest academic results, you have to watch it yourself. We tried to surgically remove the mass formed by these cells, which we named a tumor. We performed 10 surgeries in total, and the surgeries themselves were very successful. However, after the wound was healed with postoperative therapy, we found that the same kind of cells were growing everywhere on the surgical incision, on the peritoneum, and even in places we had never thought of. Shortly after the liver mass was removed and the healing was completed, we found similar masses in the intestines and lungs. It can be inferred that the surgical method is not suitable for the treatment of this type of cells. Figure 1, CT image of rabbit before surgery. Attachment 2, CT image of rabbit 10 days after surgery. This is the difference between having treatment and not having treatment. In the previous life, there was no treatment to heal wounds quickly, and cancer cells might plant and metastasize, but they would not absorb the energy of treatment and grow rapidly. Moreover, there were radiotherapy and chemotherapy in the previous life. Although it often seemed like the cancer cells and the patient must die one by one, they effectively suppress the growth of cancer cells. This world is just the opposite. After the operation, once the treatment is continued, metastasis and recurrence that originally occurred in 2 or 3 years may recur within a month or even 2 days depending on the amount of treatment. To this end, we have developed a new treatment method. The main idea is to learn from the methods of directional killing of bacteria and viruses, summarize the characteristics of these specific cells, use mental power to lock these cells, and kill them in a directional manner. Gretel put down the endless ink pen and rubbed his wrist. Speaking of which, many pictures can be printed directly on the paper manuscript using a spell similar to scribe. Text can actually be printed like this. However, if you think and write the paper yourself at the same time, your thinking will be more rigorous and the probability of making mistakes will be smaller. If you are unsure about something, you can also discuss it on the spot. Elder, can you write the process of treating the elves and the images of the cell samples taken from the elves in the paper? It's best not to, right? Elder Fahim pondered for a moment. Although the higher UPS in the parliament are not unaware of this place, they generally won't visit us before getting our consent. It's a different matter if it's written in a paper. If it's made known to everyone, it's inevitable that we'll overestimate our capabilities. People come here. Oh, okay, Gretel responded. In this case, let's delete the elf part. Anyway, there are many human natives among his treatment subjects, and the data and charts are enough. He continued to write. The tip of the pen rubs the paper, leaving line after line of writing, and takes pictures one after another. Characteristics of cancer cells, images under light microscope and electron microscope. Precautions for targeted killing of cancer cells, such as paying attention to avoid major bleeding, such as using detoxification to remove collapsed cells. Treat the targeted area first, then wipe out the whole body. Ah, it feels like there's still something missing. Gretel folded the entire paper one by one and put his head in his hands. According to his previous estimates, after completing this big project, he should be able to touch the threshold of advancement. However, the inspiration in the dark remained motionless. Obviously, the feedback he received from his therapy work and thesis writing work was far from satisfactory. Is it because Elder Fahim hasn't learned it yet? Or maybe the results of the electron microscope are attributed to the Elder, so his research is not enough? Gretel, are you done writing? Elder Fahim has been watching his actions from a distance. Seeing Greet put away the paper and holding his head in confusion, he raised his voice. You want to take a look at Yudian's test results? In some places, I always feel unsure. Greet put the endless ink pen in his breast pocket and hurried over. The Elder had already held up a piece of magic crystal in his hand. The records inside were activated by magic power, and a large three-dimensional light and shadow stood up. Look at these two pieces, are they lungs? The Elder's brows were knitted tightly, and his fingertips were inserted directly into the light and shadow, as if stroking the illusory lungs. In other words, this is CT three-dimensional reconstruction, plus the power of stereoscopic projection. Greet admired for a moment and fixed his gaze on the illusory lungs. On the left, Serero looked like a scumbag, with a confused face and silver blue eyes that said, "What's wrong with this lung?" On the right side, Idian and Anari Ling stood side by side, with solemn expressions. Especially Idian, staring at the lungs said to be his in front of him, his fingers turned into claws, and he just wanted to grab those networks. My lungs, are they like this? It doesn't feel right, that's why I feel uncomfortable all the time. Do I occasionally vomit blood? I don't feel something is right either. Greet's eyes were fixed on an abnormally bright lesion, searching for the intestines. I have never seen this kind of light before, what does it mean? Calcification lesions. Unlike. Fibrosis. Unlike. Solid nodule. Vacuum. It doesn't feel like. Foreign body in the lungs. It's too smooth and thin, and it sticks to the alveoli. What kind of foreign body can stick it so evenly? And, what's going on with this special light, and why is it surrounded by circles? Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 1115. Elder Fahim has a paper in one hand and an imaging atlas in the other, and his brows are so furrowed that they can kill mosquitoes. Take a look at the map, then look at the light and shadow in front of you, and mutter something. This is the heart, this is the lungs, this is the ribs, this is the blood vessels, right? What is this? It's so pitiful that even though he is a legendary elder and can learn things quickly enough, he still can't handle the things that greed piles up at once. There are too many. It feels like I was still struggling with sectioning and staining cells a few days ago, but today I suddenly have to look at CT independently. God knows, Gretel still can't do this thing on his own, which he calls CT. Those algorithms, what and such algorithms, supplemented by a lot of various mathematical formulas, it's so difficult, it's really difficult. I'm old, a lot older, and I have to retake mathematics. So how did Greet, a little guy at level 11, put a person on a floating saucer and spin around in a circle, memorize so many lights and shadows, and get results immediately? Of course Elder Fahim didn't know that Greet had turned his meditation core into a biological computer. This is the mediastinum, it's normal. Greet saw it and immediately helped to answer. Look at Udian again, put your hand on the back of his hand, and press. It's not this part. There's nothing wrong with this part. At present, this part seems to be the strangest. Udian also began to look confused. Touch the light and shadow, then touch his chest, take a deep breath, take a deep breath. Before he was about to reach out and hammer his chest, Gretel quickly blocked it again. Let me show you what a normal chest CT looks like. Bernard. Bernard. Bernard came running over on Appa. The silver moon deer moved its mouth, chewing on the unicorn horn, and had just finished eating. Obviously, this long horn is not so easy to digest for Appa, who is only at level 10. He needs to eat it slowly and absorb it slowly. Just like Mr. Trochka's golden feather, it took half a year to eat only half of it. Bernard, stand still and let me take a CT scan, Greet asked softly. Bernard accepted the order and stood on the floating disc and turned around. In Greet's hands, the light and shadow of the CT three-dimensional reconstruction were released. You see, here are blood vessels, here are bronchi, the alveoli and blood vessels, muscles, bones and other solid tissues containing gas have different densities. Because the lung fields contain gas, they show extremely low density shadows. Greet pointed to the two three-dimensional diagrams and patiently explained them to them bit by bit. Bernard stood upright next to him, acting as a human body teaching material, allowing the other party to constantly use his mental power to explore and compare it with the CT image in front of him. A legendary elder wanted to use his mental power to detect a level 10 warrior. As long as the other party didn't resist, he basically didn't have to bother. Even if it is Idian, although the mental power of the level 19 warrior cannot keep up with the healing legend, it is not difficult to detect Bernard. Look, this part of the lung, Qian's lung, has many more thin lines and cord-like shadows than Bernard's lungs, indicating that there are interstitial lesions in the lungs. If there are lesions, the alveoli will. If it's not easy to open, you won't be able to take in enough air. Idian nodded repeatedly. It was indeed true. Over the years, his breathing had become more and more laborious, and the more intense the fight, the more obvious it became. Several times I tried to hit the legend, but I couldn't lift it up in one breath. I felt dizzy and had stars in my eyes. But that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is that your lungs. Greet's fingers continued to move downward. In the middle lobe of the right lung, near the right heart edge, in the middle of the extremely low-density lung field, there were increasingly dense thin lines, cords, and calcification points, clustering around a large solid mass. In the center of the mass, there was a strange bright spot. This is the most troublesome. In other words, it is the root of the disease. Elder Fahim cooperated with Greet to enlarge the light and shadow to life size, and lowered the position to the same height as the human body. Idian looked solemn, looked at it carefully, and touched his chest with his backhand. He moved his fingers little by little, then landed on the lower part of his right breast as if looking in a mirror, and pressed hard. You are right. The most troublesome thing is indeed here, more than 200 years ago, when I entered the secret realm of elves. With the physique of a level 16 warrior, it is still bearable just to operate in the peripheral contaminated area. If you wear a cloak to protect yourself, a towel to cover your face, and you take a good bath, it's basically fine. However, inside the secret realm, even if he had fully activated his defensive magic, brought enough potions, and was extremely vigilant, he still unfortunately encountered an explosion. He got down in time, covered his body, was not injured on the spot, and even completed the seal maintenance task in a detour. However, every breath he took after the explosion was burning, causing pain in his chest. I prepared a lot of medicine for him and asked him to cough out the dirty things he breathed in. Elder Fahim recalled the original treatment process and sighed helplessly. However, there is still a part that is too deep and cannot be coughed out. Idian relied on his amazing physique and will to force them together. Over time, it became like this. Why does it sound like radioactive dust? Gretel muttered to himself. Speaking of which, we really should find some rocks, trees, or other things brought out of the contaminated area, and ask Cyrilla to take a look at them with the eyes of a dragon. Maybe, we can see gamma rays? Do you have any way to cure this symptom? Elder Fahim's question brought Gretel's thoughts back to reality. The old man looked at him expectantly. I see that you have treated a lot of lung diseases. Can your lung washing can be used on Udian? Or, will the injection of streptomycin and penicillin be useful? Lung washing must not be used. Greet shook his hands wildly. Just kidding, if it was really radioactive dust that had already been forced into a small area, but after being washed away, it was contaminated all over the lungs. Wouldn't that be asking for death? As for streptomycin, penicillin, then we need to do a sputum culture test to see if there are a large number of Mycobacterium tuberculosis in the lungs, or bacteria that are sensitive to penicillin. But that's not the point. The key is, how to clean up this lesion wrapped in suspected radioactive dust. My current idea is to use vines to penetrate the lungs, cut off the lesion, and remove it from the body once and for all. Gritby gestured to discuss with Elder Fahim. But there are several difficulties now that I'm not sure about. Say it, I'm here. Elder Fahim patted his chest. Then, he and Idian were stunned together, watching Gretel break off his fingers one by one and use his brain crazily. First of all, we need to keep Idian in an absolute state. Don't say that he can't hold back. The laryngeal reflex cannot be restrained and must be controlled with magic. Otherwise, the vines will not be able to pass through the throat at all. Secondly, as a level 19 warrior, even if my vines go in, I'm not sure whether I can cut the lung mass, or can you, Elder, do it? Again, Idian used his own power to wrap these foreign objects. After cutting them off, I don't know whether he can still control them from escaping. Elder, can you help me? Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. Today is the 25th. Starting from the 28th of this month, monthly votes will be doubled. Please save your monthly votes until then to vote for me. Please start asking for more votes on the 28th, with 6,000 words updated every day. Thanks to Edley for the 1,666 book coins. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Giolan 2020. Chapter 1116. Greet felt that when he came to the fertile forest this time, he brought food and food. Regarding his first question, about anesthesia, Elder Fahim smiled and took out a small jar. Dip a little bit on a wooden skewer and apply it on Gretel's lips. I don't want to wear lipstick. No lip balm either. Gretel turned his head, raised his head, and shouted in his heart. However, the elder's understatement looked unpleasant, but Gretel watched helplessly without moving away. After the wooden sign was passed, he immediately felt his lips were numb and could not speak even a single word. Very good, absorbed by the mucous membrane, quick and effective. It feels like lidocaine aerosol from a previous life. With this thing, laryngoscopes, tracheoscopes, and bronchoscopes can indeed be done at will. This is very useful. Apply it to the throat and it can cause paralysis for 10 minutes to an hour. Elder Fahim waved his hand to remove the ointment, and a green light fell on Gretel. You don't have to worry about laryngeal reflex spasms, vomiting, or the inability to insert the vine. Well, the medicinal properties will be relieved quickly. Greet felt her lips regain their flexibility and softness, and she opened her mouth to speak. Elder Fahim had already put the jar into his hand, and without waiting for him to ask usage, dosage, pharmacokinetics, toxicity, he took out a handful of seeds. I have cultivated this kind of golden and silver vine for hundreds of years. It consumes little money, is sensitive to control, tough, light, and has good magic conductivity. It is very convenient to use it for cutting, lighting, and conducting healing. It is easier to use than your gadgets. Much more. Here, take it. This. Greet wanted to say, how can this be so embarrassing? His right hand had been opened and pinched, and a heavy small cloth bag was stuffed in his palm. The elder looked sideways at Idion and stroked his beard. As for the third question, you don't have to worry. Even if he can't control it, he still has me. Okay, the legendary spellcaster should still be reassuring in terms of spell strength. With the support of the elders and all the tools, the next surgery will be easy. Greet gestured, introduced the operation process to Elder Fahim and Udayan, did sputum culture, blood tests, and made various preparations for the operation. The most important lesson is to work hard to control the new vines given by Elder Fahim. The light and shadow projected by the CT three-dimensional reconstruction are twisting and turning, constantly giving birth to. Into the nostrils. Go around the throat. Cross the glottis and enter the trachea. Right main bronchus. Right middle lobe bronchus. Tertiary, fourth, and fifth bronchi. It must be noted that what the elder calls low consumption and sensitive control may indeed be true for the legendary master. However, for Gretel, an 11th level mage, he once again experienced the feeling of wearing double gloves and protective clothing, holding a long poke card, and performing minimally invasive surgery in the patient's chest. Maybe he needs to hang a brick on each forearm to work on his strength. Or, what he actually needs is to hang a brick on his mental strength. Greet practiced day and night for half a month. Seeing that his vines went from hitting the wall every day to being able to penetrate deeper calmly. From being able to enter only the right middle lobe bronchus to being able to enter extremely small and extremely thin inferior bronchi. From being able to simply activate the vines, to stimulating growth while controlling the front end of the vines to glow, release healing spells, and cut. From walking through the illusory light and shadow, to walking through the lungs of an adult somber deer when the demon tiger Ranath hit it. There is progress every day, and there are results every day. Udayan sees it in his eyes and is not too anxious. This high-level warrior who made up his mind to sacrifice himself and make one last attempt at the secret realm settled down comfortably in the outpost. Relax your mind, take care of your body, accept treatment from the elders, and accept various examinations from Gretel. Half a month later, a bronchoscopic lung tumor resection was started in the operating room of Greet's master's lodge. Greet is the surgeon, Elder Fahim is assisting, and Sarala is gearing up and working as an equipment nurse on the side. Gretel gave her additional instructions. Celera, when the thing is cut out, please use the eyes of a dragon to take a look at it. If there is any strange brilliance, immediately. He pointed to the lead box next to him. Lead is one of the metals that magicians hate the most. It has a very poor affinity for magic, is almost impossible to respond to, and is difficult to shape directly using mental power. Gretel handed it over to Bernard, who smashed it with a hammer and squeezed it with his hands before he made a square lead box, ready to contain the suspicious organization. Put it in this box and close the lid tightly so that nothing can be leaked out. Don't worry, the silver dragon girl raised her head. As he spoke, his silver blue eyes turned into shining silver vertical pupils, looking around. Nothing can be hidden from my eyes. Elder Fahim smiled and sighed. On the operating table, Udian rolled his eyes and sighed helplessly. For this operation, his chest hair and armpit hair were all shaved. He shaved it himself. Elder Fahim was under surveillance and not even a single hair was allowed to be left behind. Greed had a very good reason, although the possibility was extremely low. If something went wrong, a large chest opening would be needed to save his life. Instead of shaving in a hurry when the time comes, it's better to be prepared in advance. His chest hair. His sexy chest hair. Although he doesn't plan to seduce beautiful women here, but it took him hundreds of years to develop such a little chest hair. It's a pity that he couldn't even protest loudly. Elder Fahim said, "Close your eyes and open your mouth," and then applied a dollop of ointment to his throat. Immediately afterwards, a vine tremblingly penetrated through the nostril. Well, it's good to use the secret eye to control the direction of the vines. Next time, you can put an insect in, for example, an ant. Use a spell to connect the ant's vision, and you can see very clearly. Let the center of the golden and silver vine pass through liquid nitrogen and quickly freeze it. Why not directly release the freezing spell through the vine? Are you worried that the spell strength is too low and the parts cannot be controlled well? This makes sense. Elder Fahim looked at the arcane eye screen, commented in a low voice, and discussed with Gretel in a low voice. Gretel was concentrating on operating the vines, occasionally answering a few words. The vines go deeper little by little, cutting again. Udian. Relax your strength. Don't resist. The elder drank lowly. A powerful force was suppressed out of thin air. Before Udian could say anything, Gretel had already tightened his breath and almost knelt down. Elder, please control him so that he doesn't implicate me. The soldier on the operating table closed his eyes and relaxed his body. Greet's forehead was sweating, and he manipulated the vines to cut, but couldn't cut. I come. With a flick of his fingertips, Elder Fahim had already raised his hand and put it on the vine. Greet shouted urgently. Cut slowly. Cut a little, treat a little, and don't let the wound bleed. New. Elder Fahim moved swiftly. The thin vines moved like arms in his hands, cutting, treating, wrapping, and dragging out. Cirilla. Coming. Cirilla rushed over, pushing the floating saucer. Seeing Gretel using the knife to cut open the mass, she immediately opened the lid of the lead box. Gretel. The light inside this lump is so strange. It's over. Is it really radioactive dust? Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. Today is the 25th. Starting from the 28th of this month, monthly votes will be doubled. Please save your monthly votes until then to vote for me. Please start asking for more votes on the 28th, with 6,000 words updated every day. Thanks to Ed for the 1,500 starting coins. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1117. Chapter 1114 Gretel, my titanium alloy, Longan was blinded. Cover it. Cover it quickly. Gretel blurted out. If he wasn't presiding over the operation, he would probably jump back and run out like a rabbit with an arrow. It was obviously suspected to be radioactive dust, so why was he too lazy to put on lead clothes? Why not take out the radiation-proof glasses in advance? Can mage armor withstand radiation? He is giving himself a ray offset now. Is it too late? Gretel's thoughts were racing and she felt sorry for herself, but her hands kept moving. The patient is still lying on the operating table and the operation is not over yet. At this time, no danger will allow him to leave the operating room. Sampling, antibiotic flushing, suctioning, treatment. Next to me, there was a click, the lid of the lead box had been closed, and Cyrilla flew far away to the corner of the operating room. Well done, Cyrilla. Greet let out a long sigh of relief. Opposite the operating table, Elder Fahim raised his head and smiled, and a circle of light shone on several people at the same time. Don't worry, we have been in and out of contaminated areas so many times, we still have basic protective spells. Besides, even if we don't have them, it's impossible for a level 11 nature walker to be unable to resist even for a moment. Gretel nodded to him gratefully. A group of people completed the operation step by step, and Greet rushed out and ran towards the nearest waterfall. Rush! Rush! Rinse the whole body with plenty of water and disinfect thoroughly. You guys come and wash up too, he waved his hands and shouted, adding amplification to his voice, which penetrated through the rumbling sound of the waterfall. This must be washed clean. It must be washed very cleanly, and there should be no stains on your body. Otherwise, the damage from the contaminated area will remain on your body forever. Elder Fahim glanced at him from afar, shook his head with a smile, and casually slapped himself with the cleansing technique a few times. What should I wash with? I have already put on a full set of defenses before. Isn't the cleaning technique delicious? Idion smiled slightly, and with a flick of his hand, a large stream of water poured from the beginning to the end. He waved to Gretel, turned around and left. His meaning was very clear. I've done washing. The only one who responded to him was Cyrilla. Miss Yinlong didn't take off her clothes, opened her arms, and jumped into the waterfall with a smile. I am coming. Don't come over here. Greet turned pale, turned around and ran away. After cleaning everything, let's face the foreign body removed from Udion's lungs. Greet had a hunch that solving the problem of the elf secret realm would be the first step from here. For this reason, he specially found an open space far away from the outpost, with deep soil, not in a wind outlet, and not near a water source. The lead box was placed in the center of the open space. He, Elder Fahim, Cyrilla and Udion were stationed in 4 directions. Are you ready? Ready. Cyrilla's feeble voice came from behind the lead sheet. Under Greet's strong request, she still put on a layer of lead armor, a lead mask, and a lead neck scarf. Although a small dose of radiation may not really be a problem for the silver dragon, Gretel couldn't do it at all and let Cyrilla take a little risk. He himself huddled behind a lead sheet. As for the other two, one who is an expert in art is bold and says that you don't understand the world of legend. Another person with an amazing physique said that he had had this thing in his lungs for so long and it was time to take a look now. Gretel had no choice but to let them go. Get ready. 3, 2, 1. The countdown ended, and 2 strong winds blew in 2 directions of the lead box at the same time. When the strong wind stopped, there was a huge golden dragon standing on one side of the clearing, and a pocket-sized silver dragon standing on the other side. It's a bit bigger than a cat, and a bit smaller than the northeastern golden gradient. The approximate size is between the Siberian forest cat and various leopards. Open the lid. At the command, grass blades grew on the ground, and the heavy lid of the lead box was pushed open. Greet looked at it intently, and in an instant, his silver vertical pupils narrowed hard. Light. Colorful light. Different from natural light, different from infrared rays and ultraviolet rays, it is a brilliant, shining light. Cirella, turn on the cathode ray tube, he commanded in a low voice, his throat unknowingly becoming a little dry. Let me compare, are this kind of light and X-ray the same kind? That's definitely not the same kind, Cirella replied without thinking. While answering, he still took out the vacuum tube and connected the electrode. I've seen this kind of light a lot. When I was in the Star Dome, my job was to help them see this kind of light. But from the Star Dome, there was only a little bit of this kind of light, unlike here. Many. So are they really gamma rays? No, even if they are not gamma rays, are they some sort of high-energy particle stream? Greet lay on the grass, staring at the lead box, trying to remember the characteristics of this ray in his heart and store it in his meditation core. After memorizing it and saving it, I raised my head and discussed with Elder Facim. Elder, are there lights like this everywhere in the contaminated area? Yes, the Elder sighed deeply. The more dazzling the place, the more dangerous it is. Even a place with dim light will sometimes burst into flames. Why, do you want to see it? I don't want to go. I can't stand this thing. Even if you are wearing a full set of radiation protection suits, a radiation protection mask, and carrying an oxygen bottle, it is still dangerous to stay in the radiation area for too long. I haven't taken the potassium iodide tablets yet. I don't have much kelp in my space equipment. Before he could refuse, Elder Fahim himself had already shaken his head. Once, twice, a strong wind blew up in the open space. You can't go. A little guy who is only at level 11 cannot withstand the dangers there. In this way, I will take you to a place. As he spoke, he flapped his wings and curled his tail. Before Greet could react, he was already on the back of the golden dragon. His body sank, and he was lifted up by the huge golden dragon and flew away. This is the long-term resting place of the forest guards of the past generations, especially the forest guards who sacrificed their lives to seal the secret realm. Of course, we will not disturb their heroic spirits, but you can take a look at their armor and weapons. As he said this, he already put down Gretel. He transformed back into his elf form, bowed deeply to the cemetery, and added another layer of defense to Gretel. Then, he unlocked the magic defense layer by layer and pushed open the stone door. Go in. Gretel spread his wings, lowered his head and saluted, and walked in with small steps. As soon as I entered the door, there was a ouch sound, and the lingering sound echoed around the beams, making the stone house buzz continuously. So bright? Too bright? There is radiant light everywhere, and the density is at least 100 times, no, 1000 times that of that lead box. My titanium alloy dragon eyes are blinded, meow. I will never see it with my own eyes again. Not even the dragon's eyes, not even the enough defense. I want to use magic, magic. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. Today is the 26th. Starting from the 28th of this month, monthly votes will be doubled. Please save your monthly votes until then to vote for me. Please start asking for more votes on the 28th, with 6,000 words updated every day. Thanks to Etya Mengbing for the 1,880 starting coins. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 1118. It's done, it's been treated, and it's been looked at. Idian moved his shoulders, took a deep breath, and punched hard. A sharp air explosion sounded, his eyebrows relaxed, he nodded to Elder Fahim and smiled proudly. I'm going to venture into the secret realm. Little Greet, thank you for treating me. Is there any souvenir you want? I'll bring it back for you. It's better to wait a little longer. Elder Fahim's face was solemn. He looked at the middle-aged warrior up and down, his gestures changed, and various colors of light brushed over his body in turn. Your disease has been cured. You can definitely last another 50 years. If you take good care of yourself, it will be fine for 100 years. There is no need to burn yourself out in such a hurry. Greed hesitated to speak and quickly lowered his head. Cured. It was only a temporary cure. Long-term radiation poisoning caused tumors, indicating that the genes of cells in various parts of the body had been severely damaged. Now that the cancer cells have been temporarily removed, I don't know when another cell will have problems replicating and grow into cancer cells. If you rush into the radiation zone rashly and receive a large amount of radiation, your genes will collapse much faster. If you don't try, you won't be willing to give in. Udayan slowly shook his head. You know, those who have broken through the secret realm, whether they are people or monsters, always advance faster. While I feel good now, I want to try again. Greed finally couldn't bear it anymore. In terms of physical blocking, he was only level 11 and couldn't beat him. In terms of verbal persuasion, others spoke softly, and his relationship with Idian was not that good. I have no choice but to go around in circles and beat around the bush. When you went in, how did you detect those colored lights? And how did you defend against them? You want to know? Udayan turned around and smiled heartily. You are a spellcaster. Actually, the method we use is not the same. However, it is okay to talk about it. Well, ask your follower to come and listen together. It will be more useful to him. Gretel quickly thanked him. Let an elf, a 19th level combat master, give a lecture to a 10th level barbarian, even if he just listens, what a favor. Even if he had treated Idian, the proud elf was not willing to give lectures to barbarians casually. Gretel was ready to listen hard, master the words, and never let the other person down. Then, with a confused look on his face, he heard the other party talking incessantly. Raise your vigilance. Let go of your intuition. Let your ears, your skin, and every hair on your body give you a warning. Try to stay in harmony with nature. This is the prerequisite for you to be able to fly after level 15, and it is also the prerequisite for you to advance further and form your own domain. As long as you are in harmony with nature, you will be able to feel what is wrong with nature. Shock your weapon. Gretel was taught a lot of fighting skills, fighting skills, fighting skills. The more he listened, the more he recoiled. Finally, Elder Fahim held back his laughter and pulled him away, throwing him a large stack of information. Elves have always had spells to detect and resist these injuries. If you want to learn them, just understand them. Gretel stretched out his arms, holding the pile of information that was too wide to wrap around and higher than his head, shaking and shaking. He reluctantly tilted his head from behind the information and asked with difficulty. Elder, this detection spell is the lowest level. How many levels is it about? At least 3 rings, the elder shrugged. The 3rd level is already very low. Spellcasters who are qualified to enter the secret realm must be at least level 12 or above. In recent years, the secret realm has become more and more dangerous. Spellcasters below level 15 are no longer allowed to enter. Even people like Idian. He glanced sideways not far away, his lips moving silently. Greet guessed that the old man might be talking about muscle stick or something like that, but there was no evidence. The elder quickly withdrew his gaze and said seriously. It's not too difficult for these warriors to master 3rd level spells. Throwing out 10 or 8 spells a day, and relying on scrolls for the rest, can generally ensure their safety. But, shouldn't this kind of thing be always available on the body? Shouldn't the detection range be expanded to 100 meters away? Greet blurted out. Geiger counter. Without such a thing, how could you just walk to a radiation-contaminated area casually? It's not that easy. Elder Fahim smiled while stroking his beard, looking at Gretel as if he were an ignorant child. This kind of invisible pollution is particularly difficult to detect and prevent. We have been studying this spell for so many years and have only lowered the spell to the 3rd level. Further down, each time it is lowered, the difficulty will not increase exponentially. It's increased tenfold. In fact, if this thing is really a high-energy ray, it is not difficult to get a Geiger counter. This thing was invented in 1928, and it does not require any shocking high technology. By the way, how did you get the Geiger counter? A vacuum tube is required, filled with inert gas, and an appropriate voltage is applied. What is the appropriate voltage? Next, how to amplify its pulse current so that it can make a beeping sound. Gretel sadly discovered that he himself was a giant in thinking and a dwarf in action. Let him rub it with his own hands. Maybe it will take him 3 to 5 years to rub it out. Is it too late for him to write a letter to the teacher now? The teacher's words will be written in about 3 to 5 days. Speaking of which, he himself does not have the ability to send messages across the ocean. He expects Elder Fahim to help deliver the message. The elves may not be happy that their secret realm is known to a human legend. Greed was tangled, Greed was worried, Greed put the information in his hand on the ground, and then squatted beside him to pull out his hair. After sitting there for a while, he suddenly slapped his forehead hard. Correct. How? Elder Fahim looked at him playfully. Greed jumped straight up, spun around on the ground, then spun around again, and quickly took out a tube of alcohol. Then, murmuring the words, he raised his head forward. Oops. It's broken. Oops. It broke again. What on earth do you want to do? Elder Fahim looked at him curiously. Gretel touched 7 or 8 tubes of alcohol, and finally a bubble formed steadily in front, a clean, dust-free bubble filled with saturated alcohol gas. First level spell, bubble spell. Level 1 mages and level 1 priests can use it at will. Make a slight change and pour alcohol into it, and the level 1 spell is still correct. Elder. Elder. Quick. Lend me one of those polluted items from the secret realm, Gretel waved to him desperately. Put it next to the bubble and take a look. Why didn't you say it when you were at the cemetery before? Elder Fahim rolled his eyes at him, rummaged through his private collection and took out a small wooden box. It seems to be just a wooden product, but the wood is hard and the color is bright. It is obviously an amazing magical artifact. I don't know which ancient tree it was taken from. He performed a series of complicated spells to unlock the seal, and then asked Gretel. How to use it? Just go farther. Yes, farther away, Gretel waved his hand vigorously. The elder raised his hand casually, and the box floated far away and landed more than 10 meters away. As soon as the lid of the box was opened, Gretel's bubble hit it. Can you see it? What? The fluctuations in the bubbles. One by one, it seems like something is passing through dash. Don't tell me earlier. The elder narrowed his eyes, and a circle of colored light burst out around his pupils. Greed knew that he had probably activated the eagle eye technique, or a similar spell. Soon, he saw the old man nodding. Can see. That's it. With this spell, you can detect it remotely. Elder, can you suppress Idian first and learn this spell? Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. Today is the 26th. Starting from the 28th of this month, monthly votes will be doubled. Please save your monthly votes until then to vote for me. I'll give you an extra update tomorrow with 10,000 rewards, then I'll start asking for more votes on the 28th. In short, I'll update 6,000 words every day starting from tomorrow. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1119. Ordinary dirt. Alcohol bubbles don't create waves. Common blades of grass. No fluctuations. Ordinary oak cane, well, don't poke the oak cane with the branches. The alcohol in my hands, your boss, is all brought from Nevis, so use one bottle less. I can't start from brewing in the bountiful forest and grind out the alcohol by hand. You are an oak staff. Why are you like a 3 to 5-year-old child? When you see a soap bubble, you reach out and prick it. Look, the cloud room exploded. Gretel, Sarah, and Elder Fahim were all circling the outpost, using alcohol bubbles, the magic version of the Wilson cloud chamber, to test various things. Gretel is in charge of the Kayun room, Elder Fahim is in charge of randomly assigning test subjects and keeping records, and Sarah is in charge of watching. The silver vertical pupils were wide open, looking left and right, up and down. Pointing and pointing, keep reporting. This one doesn't light up. This one doesn't light up either. This one is a little brighter, not as bright as the thing that was cut out of the lung before. Hey, Elder. There is a little light under this piece of soil. The results of a large number of experimental comparisons show that Greet's alcohol cloud chamber is indeed capable of detecting harmful rays. What's even more rare is that the difficulty is low and the consumption is low. It only requires a modified version of One Ring magic and a test tube of alcohol. If it were a human being, such as an ordinary magician, he might need to lie next to the cloud chamber to see the changes clearly. If he wanted to observe from a long distance, such as 50 or 60 meters away, he would need various kinds of assistance. However, the normal vision and low light vision of elves far exceed that of humans, and everyone can do spells such as Eagle Eye. Therefore, the elves use this spell to provide early warning, which is extremely cost-effective. How about another lighting technique at most? That thing is just a trick. Any elf who can step out of Evermead Island, even an elf warrior, can rub hundreds of them with his eyes closed. Of course, first of all, you have to learn this magic. Bubbles must open slowly. Be steady. Keep out the dust in the air. Don't leave even a tiny bit behind. Fill the bubbles with alcohol. Pay attention to hooking up the casting props and fill the alcohol at the right time. Lower the air pressure, lower the temperature. The air pressure and temperature must be accurate. What you need is the supersaturated vapor of alcohol. What is supersaturation? The expansion rate must be carefully controlled. Only with the correct expansion rate can we see the steam path. What is the correct expansion rate? Greet seems to remember that the volume expansion ratio of dust-free air when observing negative ions is 1.25 to 1.28, when observing positive ions, it is 1.31 to 1.35. Mr. Wilson has been studying this data for 4 years. Gretel certainly didn't have 4 years. Fortunately, his research conditions are much better than Wilson's. Something is known to emit high-energy particles, and a cloud chamber is known to observe high-energy particles. Now, I have a cloud chamber in my hand, and the expansion ratio can be freely adjusted using the curve in the spell model. Then, I will repeatedly adjust the output of the spell to a suitable range. Except for Idian, who was more miserable, being forced there by Elder Fahim to try again. The aroma of wine was everywhere around me, and I wasted one test tube after another with alcohol, but nothing came out. Why can't you do this? Why can't you do it? You are a top warrior below legend. Even in terms of spell casting ability, you are considered an intermediate spell caster, right? Elder Fahim said angrily. Can you have some snacks? This is to save your own life. For your own life. Greet smiled secretly in the distance. When Udian explained how to detect rays in a warrior way, he squatted beside him and listened stupidly, like an idiot. Now it was his turn to explain the new magic. Idian was blown by the elder, glared at him, and sprayed all over his face. It's not like I'm an idiot, but it's not much better. Smiling, he held the endless quill and continued writing papers and spell models. Fix the spell model to make a spell scroll. With a large number of spell scrolls, the elven warriors can get early warning if they go deep into the radiation zone. Although it doesn't beep like a Geiger counter, it's still a good thing to be able to see the particle path. No. Wait. Elder, is there any way to make it chirp when a steam path appears in the clouds? The denser the path, the denser it chirps? Or, is there any way to make the cloud chamber chirp when a steam path appears? Shine on its own. Let me think about it. Elder Fahim immediately stopped patting Idian on the head. He took over the research responsibility and began to try to add an early warning function to the cloud room. Although it cannot be made to glow or make noise in hunting areas, as it may easily alarm monsters, the early warning function is still very necessary in non-hunting areas. Well, after this spell is developed, a bunch of scrolls and wands will be made, and a batch will be given to each of the elf warriors. Greet smiled and handed over the practical task to the elder, scratched his head and continued writing the theoretical part. Well, it has been confirmed by Cyril Longan observations that this kind of ray exists in small amounts in the light of the sun and stars, and in large amounts in the rays emitted by pollutants in the secret realm. Hey, doesn't this mean that what the elves wanted to rub was a sun well, or an artificial sun? Greet's hand slipped, leaving a long black line on the manuscript paper. I have a beautiful wish. When I grow up, I can sow the sun. What do the elves want to do? Is it nuclear fission or nuclear fusion? Well, whatever it is, this opens the door to atoms. If the teacher could get a piece of nuclear material and a complete set of research methods, who knows what he could come up with. Also, the prophecy department would definitely like to have an observation method like the cloud chamber. Open a large cloud chamber in the star dome, and all kinds of rays will immediately reveal their traces. It's better than hiring Sarala to tap buttons. Hey, it seems like it's cutting off Sarala's way of making money. Well, we must not let Sarala know about this. Fortunately, the Silver Dragon girl is not short of money now, so she may not necessarily be interested in the 3 melons and 2 dates in the star dome. It took Yudian a full day to learn the new version of the bubble technique. It took another 7 or 8 days to practice the alcohol bubble technique to the point where I could hit anywhere within 50 meters and successfully detect strange rays. He wanted to set off again, but was stopped by Gretel again. Wait a minute. What defense method did you use when you went deep into the secret realm? How effective is it? The effect is not bad. Show it to me. See how many rays you can block when you set up a defense, and how many rays will be missed. For the sake of Gretel developing new magic, and most importantly, for the sake of Fahim's long tiger eye, Idian had to postpone his trip and spend a day to demonstrate the magic defense effect for Gretel. Low intensity ray. Distance 1 meter, defense time 12 hours, no response from the cloud chamber. Gretel was lying outside writing furiously. Thanks to the early warning magic developed by Elder Fahim, he could see the reaction of the cloud chamber from dozens of meters away, without having to bear the lead shell to get closer. Medium-low intensity rays. The source is the burial sword, the distance is 1 meter, the defense time is 12 hours, the cloud chamber has a slight reaction, 5 disturbances were observed within 12 hours. Medium intensity ray. Source, burial chamber, hole, the shelter cabin is opened in the tomb, the defense time is 8 hours, and the cloud chamber has a strong reaction. Look, the defense is still not that good. Gretel put down the record book, spread his hands, and tilted his head. That's all for medium intensity rays. How long can you withstand high intensity rays? Does it all depend on your physical strength? Then what can you do? Elder Fahim and Idian said in unison. Elder Fahim's eyes were eager, but Yudian looked a little frustrated. Defensive spells consume a lot of money. If I waste all my strength on defensive spells, I won't have the strength to seal the gap in the secret realm. Then let's use other methods of defense. Without thinking, Greed slapped the space bag, and a pile of metal blocks fell to the ground with a bang bang. Come on, let's do the test again. 1 mm thick lead plate. 5 mm thick lead plate. 8 mm thick lead plate. 1 cm thick lead plate. The noble level 19 elf warrior took on the hard work of tearing, pressing, kneading, and kneading. The heavy lead block was no different from plasticine in his hands. According to Greet's request, lead boxes were made one after another to contain various radiation sources, and the radiation protection experiment was conducted again. 1 mm thick lead plate will not work. 5 mm thick can protect against low intensity and medium low intensity, but cannot protect against medium intensity. 8 mm thick, low intensity, 12 hours, undetectable. 24 hours, undetectable. Low to medium intensity. Medium intensity. Look, just use a lead plate. Greet stared into Idian's eyes sincerely. Use 8 mm thick. Considering that there may be higher intensity rays in the secret realm, it is best to use 1 cm thick, or even 2 cm thick lead plates to make a suit of armor. Wrap them all from head to toe, without leaking at all. Idian's face darkened. Full armor? Full armor with no leaks at all? The armors worn by their elves are all hollow and patterned light armor, with powerful defensive spells attached to them. The full armor with no leaks was heavy, clumsy, and had no beauty. He had not worn it for a single day since he was born. There is no such thing on Evergem Island. That's what barbarians, orcs, a race with only muscles and no brains wear. Wearing this stuff will make you laugh to death. Without waiting for him to refute, Gretel clapped his fingers and added another condition. Not only do you have to wear full armor, but you also can't breathe outside air, otherwise you will be like you, inhaling a breath of dust into your lungs and suffering for hundreds of years. It's best to carry a compressed air bottle in and just inhale the gas in the cylinder. Idian stood up with a livid face. Take 3 steps back, turn around and leave. I won't wear it. I won't wear it. I would rather die in a secret realm with my bones burned by rays than wear something that has no aesthetic value. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. Today is the 27th. The last one before double monthly pass. Monthly votes will be doubled starting tomorrow. Please save your monthly votes until then to vote for me. Please vote for more updates. From today onwards, we will update 6,000 words every day. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1120. Don't want to wear it? Die and don't wear it? If Bernard dared to say such a thing, Gretel would jump up from the ground and smash his head with an oak stick. Not wearing it? Rather than go in and be exposed to a lot of radiation, and come back with your cells and genes disintegrated, and suffer for dozens of days before dying little by little, I would rather break your head now. However, Gretel couldn't defeat Yudian. Not to mention that he couldn't beat him, he jumped up and gave him an oak stick, which shattered his own hand. Maybe he hadn't broken through the defense yet. Physical persuasion obviously doesn't work. Magical persuasion? It is said that warriors who are close to the legendary level have an extremely strong will and cannot be influenced by relevant spells casually. Even if he could, he is not of the control type. Gretel turned to Elder Fahim for help. Elder Fahim smiled bitterly and shook his head. Instead of helping to persuade, he sighed to Gretel. Gretel, don't blame Idian for not accepting your kindness. Such a full lead armor must have. He made a quick estimate and couldn't figure it out, so he could only give a rough number. 100 pounds. Gretel shook his head. For medical lead clothing, the imported version weighs about 4.5 to 5 kilograms, while the domestic version weighs about 6-7 kilograms because the workmanship is not so refined. However, medical lead clothing is generally only 3 mm thick and consists of a lead cap, lead neck protector, short-sleeved lead vest, and lead skirt. The protective area is less than half of full armor. If the thickness is increased to 10 mm and covers the whole body. Well, Udian's height is roughly estimated at 180 centimeters, and his weight is calculated based on a BMI of 24. Then, according to the universal Su Wencheng's formula, his body surface area is roughly estimated to be 2 square meters. How much does a 2 square meter, 1 centimeter thick lead plate weigh? 226 kilograms. Greet reported this number, feeling a little guilty himself. Ignoring the flexible connections between joints and the gas cylinder, it weighs at least 226 kilograms. Even with the person and armor, it weighs at least 300 kilograms. I estimate, he may really not be able to carry it. The more he spoke, the more guilty he became, and the more he spoke, the softer his voice became. As he spoke, he glanced at Idian quickly and quickly retracted his gaze. Even if you can carry it, facing complex terrain, such as swamp terrain, it is probably difficult to get through, and danger will occur. How were the radiation protection suits designed in previous lives? Why did he have the impression that even the heavy-duty radiation protection suit used by the military only weighed more than 10 kilograms? He must have made a mistake somewhere. Good boy, are you waiting for me here? A voice that seemed to be smiling but not smiling interrupted his thoughts. Idian crossed his arms and looked at him leisurely. 300 kilograms does sound like a terrifying number, and the gas cylinder may be even heavier. But is this a remarkable number for a fighter who is close to a legend? Not to mention being close to a legend, even when he was at level 10, he could carry 300 kilograms of stuff and leap like flying without even taking a breath. A level 5 knight wearing 300 pounds of full armor may not be able to do anything, but he will definitely be able to walk. Want to use this number to inspire him to submit? Boy, you are still a little young. Then, please help me test it, Gretel said on the snake-killing stick. After all, your body may be able to withstand that kind of damage. Other young low-level warriors need some external help. If you waste a little time and help with an experiment, maybe it will make their lives a lot easier. Idian snorted and stopped talking. Elder Fahim took advantage of him to turn his head back, blinked quickly at Gretel, and said in a long voice. Greet, you can't just try something like lead armor just by saying it. At least you have to make it completely. For example, that gas cylinder, how much does it weigh? Greet really doesn't know this question. The weight of the cylinder depends on the compression of the air and the mass of the pressure vessel. The medical oxygen cylinder in the previous life had a capacity of 40 liters, a height of 1.5 meters and a weight of 55 kilograms. It could be carried for about 24 hours. Do you want to enter a polluted area for 2 or 3 days? How many more 55-kilogram cans can you carry? He said uncertainly. As expected, Elder Fahim shook his head when he heard this. This is too heavy. Is there any other way? There are 2 other ways. Gretel quickly glanced at Idian. Seeing that although his back was turned to her, the tips of his long ears were trembling slightly, and he immediately raised his fingers to the elder. The first way is to wear a breathing mask to filter the dirty air from the outside. Fill the cylindrical filter with very finely divided carbon powder and clay, and wrap it with a semi-permeable membrane to ensure that dust cannot enter. This is so boring. Idian immediately retorted. It's not like they haven't tried this method before. However, whether it is a face mask, a mask, or a filter stuffed in the nose, it can make people breathless but also unable to pass through. Let a warrior who requires a lot of exercise fight while out of breath? This is so stupid. This is killing people. Indeed, if you put on the suit and a breathing mask, you can only walk slowly and cannot engage in high-intensity fighting. Greet nodded in agreement, and then immediately proposed the second option. The second method is to try to provide real-time oxygen. We all know that when the green leaves of plants are exposed to the sun, they will produce oxygen. Ahem. Coughing sounds came and went. What does we all know mean? Only you know, right? Can you share the paper before presenting the latest results of the parliament next time? Gretel was cheeky and spoke calmly despite the elves' gazes. This kind of oxygen can be breathed by people. If you have any questions, we can do a simple experiment to prove it later. Now, let's move on to the next thing. You mean, stuff a plant into the armor? Elder Fahim thought thoughtfully. Gretel shook his head. It's not that simple. It must be green leaves growing under the sun outside the armor to have this ability. However, maybe we can talk to plants and let them transport oxygen into the armor. So you mean, not only do I have to carry 500 pounds of armor, but I also have to carry a tree. Yudian's face turned completely dark. I am going into the elven secret realm to explore the contaminated area and the part where the seal is leaked. I may have to kill some contaminated monsters. I am not going to transport logs. What the hell is going in with a tree on your back? Go in with a tree on your back, this might be a good idea. Ignoring Idian's gaze that wanted to eat people, Greed put his hand on his chin and thought seriously. Well, the 226 kilogram armor is indeed a bit heavy. It would be much better to have a tree to help support it. It can be wrapped around the waist or legs when moving, acting as an exoskeleton. When standing or sitting, the outer part can stretch into a shelf. Yudian. I am a half-legendary warrior, wearing a piece of armor. Do I still need a tree to help me carry it? In any case, Idian finally agreed to Gretel and help him test the new armor. Humph, even if it was to prove that he, Idian, the closest legendary warrior in the secret forest, could carry a 500-pound armor, he had to go in there. Of course, lead armor cannot be worn at the drop of a hat, and the secret realm of elves cannot be entered at the drop of a hat. Before entering, he still has to do a few things. First, make a piece of armor with your own hands. Gretel offered a large number of lead blocks and ignored them. He spread out his hands and said that he did not know how to cast them. Neither can Bernard, nor can the elders, Cyrilla. Even if the silver dragon girl knows how to do it, Udian can't speak. Second, adjust the state of the tree, the vine, it's a plant anyway. Elder Fahim was mainly responsible for this matter. He found a suitable vine in the forest, hugged it and babbled. Nagging understands that after teaching the vine, he will transfer it to Udian and let Udian communicate and adjust with it. At the very least, when it's time to release oxygen, be sure to inject oxygen into the armor. When releasing carbon dioxide at night, be sure not to put carbon dioxide into the armor. You should also learn this kind of skill, Elder Fahim said to Gretel with hatred. Greet raised a flattering smile at him. Oh, I'm busy, Elder, you see I still have so much work to do, so many experiments to plan. Next time, okay. Definitely next time. Next time don't ask me to teach your oak staff any skills. Gretel lowered his head and looked at the ground without speaking. The elder has been saying it harshly, but in the end he has to teach it, not only teach him, but also teach his oak staff how to transfer its skills to other ancient trees. This is too difficult. Before he figures it out, it's better to leave it to the elders. In addition to the second and third. The third thing Idian is waiting for Gretel to make an anti-pollution potion. We have the relevant potions, Idian said to Gretel seriously. I know you do. But I heard about a prescription that is very effective in resisting pollution damage, Greet replied with a double serious look. And I have seen your prescriptions. They are all magic potions and require picking magic plants to make them. If my prescription is effective, it can be made with ordinary plants. It is much more convenient and cheaper. What, you look down on ordinary plants? Idian frowned. It's not that he is picky, it's just that Gretel is a foreign half-elf and has not received the orthodox education of elves. He is very worried that this little cub has taken the wrong path. In the values of the elves, whether ordinary plants or magic plants, ordinary animals or magical beasts, and even the elves themselves are part of nature. There is no such thing as noble or low. Only by understanding this can we get closer to and embrace nature. If you don't understand this, you will definitely go astray if you blindly respect power and high-level magic beasts and magic plants. Why do you look down on it? Gretel opened his eyes wide and looked at him blankly. Ordinary plants are plentiful. They are plentiful, cheap, and easy to collect. We can use cheap ones that ordinary people can get, so why do we have to use expensive and rare ones? Idian instantly felt that the distance between him and Gretel was not just 300 or 400 years. He waved his hand feebly. Go and try yours. You'd better move quickly. I don't have that much time to waste time with you. Then do me a favor. I need experimental animals. A large number of experimental animals, preferably of the same type. Well, preferably a large number of rabbits. Let me see, there are 3 kinds of potions used by elves. So, give me 120 adult rabbits. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. There are only 4 hours left to get the double monthly pass. Monthly votes will be doubled starting tomorrow. Please save your monthly votes until then to vote for me. Please vote for more updates. From tomorrow to the end of the month, 6,000 words will be updated every day. Thanks to @reader1341690824943931392 for the 100 starting coins reward. Yesterday, author Meow had the 10th leader. The leader has collected 10. The author is so happy. Roll around, lift up 4 feet, shake on your back, and wag your tail. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1121. What? 120 of them? Elder Fahim, Idian and Anari Ling asked in unison. 120 adult rabbits are not something you can just catch. The forest guards have to run around in the forest and work for several days to catch them. Do you know how hard it is to catch so many rabbits? Anari's voice was a little trembling. The elder is old, and Idian has old injuries that need to be recuperated. Whatever needs Gretel has, it is mainly her business. It was she who led the nearby forest guards to dig caves, set traps, search nearby woods and grasslands, or communicate with the monsters, asking them to capture alive and healthy ones and send them over. Didn't you catch a lot last time? Before Gretel could answer, Sirara already spoke. The beautiful face with the same features as an elf had a blank look on her face, completely unable to grasp what made Lin Ge crazy. I caught it so easily last time. Wouldn't it be nice to catch it again this time? Well, this is different from last time. Last time you could call them directly, but not this time. Anari Ling took Sarala to one side and muttered, spreading common sense among those who serve nature. Of the wild beasts and monsters captured last time, if you capture one, treat one, if you cure one, release the other. Although my hands occasionally slip. Well, it's not intentional to have slippery hands. It's for the good of the beasts and monsters. The forest guards can use their natural affinity to communicate, persuade, and seduce. However, this time using rabbits to test the drug would obviously harm their lives and health. In this case, you cannot use your natural affinity ability to communicate, which is tantamount to deception and murder. Imagine the forest guards saying to the rabbits, "Come with me, I will take you to eat and drink well." After taking them away, they eat and drink, then pick them up and give them medicine, perform an operation, and put them in a polluted and poisonous place. Environment. The whole nature will come back. They will all turn their backs on them and no longer respond to any of their calls. We forest guards, even if we hunt food and furs for ourselves, we can only use our own keen eyes and ears, and our own experience and skills to hunt. Otherwise, they will naturally ignore us. That's it? Cyrilla lowered her face and muttered in a low voice. If you don't cheat, just don't cheat. At most, you have to work harder. Sister Linji, do you want me to help you catch rabbits? You can rest. You are also helping to catch rabbits. With your size, it is more efficient to catch large beasts or ferocious beasts. When playing with a small and cunning guy like a rabbit, don't let out a breath of dragon's breath when you get excited and freeze the whole forest. Or simply transform back into dragon form. The rabbit missed, and the surrounding trees were knocked down. On the other side, Greed was still explaining to Elder Fahim and the others the necessity of 120 rabbits. 3 elf medicines, plus my medicine, plus a batch of rabbits that don't take any medicine as a control group. The weaker polluted environment, the stronger polluted environment, each batch of 12 rabbits, can no longer anything less. Alas, it would be nice to have a Geiger counter. The radiation dose is 100-500 millisieverts, and the radiation dose is 1000-2000 millisieverts. These two ranges, at least have one set each. The current method of estimating radiation intensity by looking at bright light and counting cloud chamber trajectories one by one is not reliable after all. Then you mean, if you can't try out 120, you have to ask for more. Elder Fahim frowned. Greet, if you can use less rabbits, it's better to use less. What you want are adult rabbits. 120 adult rabbits means at least 60 litters of little rabbits, which means that within half a year, this woodland there won't be any little rabbits. I understand, ecological balance. Greet nodded vigorously. Elder, I know that I will try to save as much as possible. But this number has been reduced to the lowest. In this way, after the first batch of comparative experiments, if I want to test the suitable dosage of my medicine, I will not use the elf medicine for comparison, and can save lots of rabbits. Then you go catch it yourself. Seeing Gretel's behavior of asking for hundreds of rabbits whenever his upper lip touches his lower lip, Idion couldn't help but want to embarrass him. However, Gretel sighed, and his whole face wrinkled together. I can't catch it. When I catch it myself, if I catch 120 rabbits, the ones in front of me will all die of old age. Puff. Puff. Cyrilla and Annery Ling laughed together. Gretel's performance is not over yet. Well, if there really weren't so many rabbits in the rainforest, I would have to wear lead armor and go into the polluted area to shovel dirt. Then, I went back to the Eagle Country to do experiments. I have a laboratory there, and I want rabbits and stuff like that. If you want 100, there are only 100, if you want 1,000, there are only 1,000. Is this a threat? This is obviously a threat. Idion's eyes twitched. Not to mention that he couldn't look after a level 11 cub. Oh, in terms of physical fitness, he was probably not as good as half the teenagers on Evergem Island, carrying 500 pounds of lead armor to shovel dirt in a polluted area. Even if he can stand by and watch, can he be let go? If you want 100, you will only have 100, if you want 1,000, you will only have 1,000. Are you trying to say that you dare to torture 1,000 rabbits to death without us watching? Okay. I'll catch it for you. He pressed his knee and stood up suddenly. Greet raised a big smile, closed her palms towards him, and bowed vigorously. Please. Please. 120 rabbits, all adult and healthy rabbits, preferably of the same weight. Idion snorted and jumped out. Annery Ling quickly went to create rabbit cages and rabbit grass, preparing to house these rabbits. As for Gretel. What are you doing? Gretel dug up a large piece of land, turned fossils into mud, and turned mud into stone. Throw in a lot of dried kelp and light a fire. Potassium iodide is produced from kelp. I make medicine. The medicine I'm talking about is extracted from kelp and seaweed on the beach. So why don't you just let the rabbit eat the kelp? Annery Ling frowned, held back a sneeze, and walked upwind. This is already the second fire. As for the first fire, Gretel swept up the ashes, dissolved them in water, and set up a magic circle to extract. Alas, the magic circle invented by Mr. Norwood can extract various small amounts of drugs, and the effect is outstanding. Fortunately, in order to prepare silver iodide, he had also tinkered with some potassium iodide before, so he had some stocks on hand. Otherwise, we would have to fiddle with the iodine element from scratch, which would be a big trouble. Annery Ling watched for a while and couldn't help but be curious. If you are just worried that the kelp is too salty, just wash it. If you are worried that the rabbit will not eat it, we can help you. If you add so many chemicals and then throw them all away, it will do great damage to nature. And people can eat it? I remember that this kind of kelp is used to stew broth. It is very delicious. As for me, it is no problem to eat a pound in one sitting. It really needs to be used as medicine. Like iodine, 10 there's no problem with the pounds. I'm back. With a swipe sound, Idion had already rushed back carrying a large rattan box. In the rattan box, there were screams and fighting sounds, and at least a dozen rabbits could be seen faintly. He ran over and stood next to Gretel, took a look at the thing he was tinkering with, and felt happy. Little Gretel, are you trying to make me eat kelp? It's possible that he ate kelp ash. Greed pointed to the burning stone pit with a straight face. I have calculated that if you had to eat only kelp to get the required amount of medicine to fight pollution, you would probably need to eat 20 pounds of kelp a day. How many days you have been in a polluted area will mean how many days you have to eat kelp. That's still. Idion trembled. Eating 20 pounds of venison in one sitting is not a problem for him. Warrior, who doesn't have an iron stomach. However, eating kelp ash is a bit boring. By the way, if you don't want to eat this thing, is there any use in wrapping it outside? Since it helps to resist pollution, can you wrap the kelp around the outside of the armor to resist it, right? Gretel's hand slipped and he almost adjusted the magic circle to the wrong position. Wrap kelp around the armor? Slippery and enjoyable? What an otherworldly idea this is. What do you think radiation is? The arrows shot out. Can a wrap of kelp help you block it? The iodine in those kelp is going into your thyroid gland to fill it. I'm not here to protect you from disaster. Are you sure? He looked at the other party sideways. I'm not even talking about whether it's useful or not. Can you bear this look? Then let's eat kelp ash. Idion imagined that his whole body was covered with kelp, looking like a plant mummy, and he couldn't help but feel discouraged. Hey, boy, can you make the kelp ash more delicious? For example, add some honey and mix it into honey balls that can be swallowed in one go. I won't let you eat kelp ash even if you want to. Greed has already collected the ingredients in the magic circle, tinkering, tinkering, and tinkering to create a liquid. Carefully drop it into a test tube, watch the solution in the test tube turn blue, and let out a sigh of relief. I have calculated that the potassium content in kelp is 200 times the content of the medicinal ingredient I want. 100 grams of fresh kelp contains 113 micrograms of iodine and 246 milligrams of potassium. The intake of potassium iodide tablets for radiation protection is about 100 milligrams per day. If you rely on eating kelp to take 100 milligrams of the medicinal ingredient, it's almost like taking it all in one go, half a pound of potassium, right? Imagine drinking a solution containing 250 grams of potassium chloride in one breath. He doesn't know whether this person will die or not, but if he consumes so much potassium ions, he will definitely suffer from hyperkalemia, cardiac arrest, etc. waving to people. This is not a question of whether you will be exhausted to death if you finish 10 or 20 pounds of kelp. Well, in addition to potassium iodide, kelp also contains higher amounts of sodium iodide. He needs to adjust the magic circle, collect, extract, and react again, trying not to waste the iodine elements inside. After all, the kelp in his space equipment is for his occasional cravings, not for drug experiments. Double monthly pastime. Double monthly pastime. From September 28 to October 7, cats will be asked for double monthly tickets. Quickly vote for me, meow. There are already 1,954 starting monthly votes, and this month's goal is 4,000 votes. There will be 4 additional updates at that time. Meow. The cat rolls, turns its belly, waves its 4 little pink paws, and shakes its tail like a windmill. Please vote for me. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, and ask for rewards. Asking for a monthly ticket. Thanks to Yamengbing for the 1,662 starting coins. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 1122. The weight of this rabbit is 5.1 kilograms. 5.2 kilograms. 5.5 kilograms, huo, fat. It's a pity that contaminated rabbits cannot be eaten, otherwise this rabbit could eat a big meal. This rabbit weighs 4.5 kilograms. It's tangled. The difference in weight is more than 10%. Is it really accurate to make such a big difference? How much should I feed them? Adults are 100 milligrams per day, children aged 3 to 12 years old are 50 milligrams per day, children under 3 years old are 25 milligrams per day, so who tells me how much rabbits are? 25 milligrams, is it too much? There will definitely be problems if you feed too much. What is the 50% lethal dose of potassium iodide? I don't know. Do I need to do a wave of toxicological experiments first? But, if you eat 3 to 5 times more potassium iodide, it seems like it will definitely be fine. Elder Fahim, Idian, and Anari Ling are each responsible for 24 rabbits and an elf secret medicine. Record the status, record the amount of medicine, open the mouth and take the medicine. After giving the medicine, throw it into the rabbit cage and put it in a special room. Greet, are you okay? I'm going to put something in the rabbit room. Wait a minute, Gretel shouted back. After thinking about it for a long time, I suddenly thought. The normal weight of a newborn baby is between 2.7 kilograms and 5 kilograms, the normal weight of a 3-year-old child is between 12.6 kilograms and 16 kilograms. For such a large span, the dosage mentioned in the book is always 25 milligrams. It can be seen that, it is a little too much. It'll be okay. Give me the medicine. 120 rabbits were evenly placed into 2 rabbit rooms. One room was paved with dust and dirt swept out from the elf cemetery. After long observation, spell testing, and cloud chamber testing, it was determined that the degree of pollution was weak. In another room, Elder Fahim solemnly invited out an elven broken bow and a pair of elven double swords. It was placed in the rabbit room, shining brightly. Sirara wrinkled her little nose after taking one look. Although dragons like shiny things, dragons don't like this kind of bright light. Okay, put the rabbits in 2 rabbit rooms respectively, feed and water them regularly, and observe the situation. Gretel finally finished feeding the 24 rabbits, clapped his hands and stood up. Do not use treatment or any other means to intervene. The duration of the experiment is until the first rabbit in the control group, the group that does not take any medicine, dies in the moderately polluted room. Those words made several elves look ugly. Gretel bowed to them apologetically, turned around and dove into the laboratory and began to write a plan. Demonstrating the protective effect of potassium iodide if it works at all is just the beginning. There is still much to do next. 4 hours, 8 hours, 12 hours. 1 day, 2 days. The breath of the rabbits is getting weaker and weaker, and Elder Fahim's face is getting more and more ugly. Can't it be over yet? When will it end? These rabbits are dying. I hear them screaming every day, every hour, every minute. Wait a moment. Gretel's face was solemn, but he stood unwaveringly in front of the elder. Wait a minute. If we want to use as few rabbits as possible to achieve a deterministic effect, we must make the difference in treatment effect the most obvious. Therefore, when the first rabbit dies, it is the best time to end the experiment. Finally, the first rabbit in the moderately polluted area vomited blood, collapsed, and died. Elder Fahim almost rushed in, covered the source of pollution, and then dragged out all the rabbits. What's next? Don't give magic treatment, Gretel said calmly. Continue to give food and water as normal and record their condition. Can't even treat. No, the intensity of treatment cannot be controlled to be equal, which can easily cause interference and affect the research results. Elder Fahim closed his eyes, pretended not to see anything, and walked away angrily. Turning a blind eye to suffering animals and turning a blind eye to their screams and pleas for help was really not his style. However, he couldn't defend Gretel, let alone grant Gretel the right to host the experiment in advance. Wait, wait, wait. Observe, observe, observe. Elder Fahim was extremely depressed, watching Gretel stand by and do nothing, not giving any help to the rabbits except feeding, watering and recording. Watch Gretel 4 times a day, morning, noon, night, and before going to bed, observing and recording the rabbit's physical signs, weight, food and water intake, and measuring body temperature. Watching him expressionless, he picked up the dead rabbits one by one, dissected them, froze them, and recorded them. The facts are already obvious. A month later, Greed held a thick record book and sat at a round table under the ancient tree. Everyone was sitting around the round table. He took the summary paper and handed it out one by one. In the moderately polluted area, among the 12 rabbits in the control group, 10 died within a week, and all died within 10 days. For the rabbits that were pre-medicated, 7 out of 12 died within 2 weeks in the Elf secret medicine group, 9 died in the second group, and 6 died in the third group. 3 rabbits that were given potassium iodide died within 2 weeks. In low pollution areas, Greet's medicine performed better. In the control group, 4 out of 12 rabbits died within 2 weeks, and a total of 9 rabbits died within 1 month. For a set of Elf secret medicine, 1 animal will die within 2 weeks, and a total of 5 animals will die within 1 month. In the secret medicine group 2 died within 2 weeks, and a total of 7 died within 1 month. In the third group of secret medicine, no animals died within 2 weeks, and 4 animals died within 1 month. However, no rabbits who took potassium iodide died within 2 weeks, and only 1 died within 1 month. Comprehensive victory, Cyrilla whispered to Gretel quietly. Then, he raised the recording paper and shook it loudly. Obviously, the protective effect of Gretel's medicine exceeds that of any elf secret medicine. Uncle Idion. She raised her face and smiled sweetly. These days, Idion accompanies her to teach her moves, gives guidance to Bernard, and even wrestles with Appa, and she sees everything. Although I won't accompany him into the contaminated area, I hope he can come out safely. If you want to enter the secret realm of elves, remember to take the medicine given by Gretel. I'd like to eat it, but he doesn't seem to be able to take out so much, Idion said with a straight face. Gretel could only respond with a wry smile. Based on the iodine content in kelp, it takes about 20 pounds of fresh kelp to extract 100 milligrams. In other words, the rabbit eats less, and the little kelp he carries with him will be enough. And prepare enough pills for Idian? Here, give me a few days and I'll go to the beach to fish. They are in the heart of the rainforest, and the closest distance to the coastline is 1,000 kilometers. Idian pointed in the direction, and Gretel turned on the ancient vine bird, racing at full speed, and reached the seaside in 3 days. Ah, how many days are you going to the secret realm? At least half a month. Idian didn't even think about it. Entering, hunting, exploring, and sealing can be completed within half a month, which is considered a success. Can you prepare more? For example, prepare a group of people, 10 to 15, for half a month. 15 people, half a month's consumption is 225 servings. Not counting losses, 20 kilograms of fresh kelp per person is approximately equal to just over 2 tons. Greet's vision went dark. Idian crossed his arms and looked at him, the corners of his mouth curled up. I told you to delay my time. I told you to torture the rabbit. Tell you, to give me some advice and let me carry 500 pounds of lead armor into the contaminated area. The dry season and the rainy season turn around, and finally, it's your turn to be embarrassed by me. Come, go into the sea and fish for kelp. I can also help you with this: wash, cut, pound, burn, dissolve and use the kelp you have picked up to make medicine. I won't help you with this. Come on, one person can handle 2 tons of kelp. I know that with how serious the therapist is about medicine, you will definitely do the entire process from beginning to end. Gretel also thought of his miserable future. Beside him, Cyrilla didn't know why and was still looking at him with concern. Greet, is the kelp too heavy to drag up? It's okay, let me help you. As he spoke, he was ready to jump into the sea. Gretel quickly waved his hand. Wait a minute while I think about it. Sarah, I'm very grateful that you are willing to help, but even if you can help, it can't change the fatigue of handling 2 tons of kelp by myself. I want to think about it again, think about it carefully. Sarah, take me into the water and find the biggest kelp tree. Okay. Sarah pulled his arm, jumped up, and sank into the water like a fish. Gretel held up the underwater breathing spell, and was led by her to dive deep, deep, into the dark sea water, into the deep and dense underwater jungle. Hello, Gretel grabbed a kelp tree, clasped his hands together, and grasped the wide, fat, slippery, and slimy huge leaves. Try your best to stretch your mental energy and say hello to the kelp in front of you. I'm here to ask you, please have a taste of this thing. He took out a small bottle of potassium iodide solution, buckled it on the kelp blade, and then pulled off the rubber skin on the mouth of the bottle. Let the potassium iodide solution come into direct contact with the kelp leaves without any obstruction. Please try your best to absorb this kind of thing. Try to absorb as much as possible. If you can absorb 10 times, then 10 times. If you can absorb 100 times, then absorb 100 times. Yes, I will compensate you for the power you need. The huge kelp remained motionless, and there was no feedback from its mental power. Gretel was sweating on his forehead and wanted to pinch it. Ah, it's so difficult to communicate with this seaweed. Is it true that algae plants are lower organisms with lower intelligence and difficulty in communication? Do it again. Hello. 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 I'm going here too slowly. Should I change the speed to lightning for you? Greet cursed, still holding back, and slowly communicated with kelp. Communicating plants. Guide plants to mutate. Guide the plants to grow in the direction you want. This is a compulsory lesson for every nature priest. However, it is too tiring to drive a kelp with such a low level and such a huge body. Come on, Archdruid Gretel. Double monthly pastime. Double monthly pastime. From September 28 to October 7, cats will be asked for double monthly tickets. Quickly vote for me, meow. There are now 2,342 starting monthly votes, and the goal for this month is 4,000 votes. Is it possible to reach meow? If reached, there will be 4 additional updates. Meow. The cat was running around scratching its tail, turning into a tornado to beg for votes. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, and ask for rewards. Asking for a monthly ticket. Thanks to Etienne Moa for the 200 starting coins. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1123. Greet dives, surfaces, dives, surfaces. Communicate with kelp, communicate with kelp, communicate with kelp. Greet went up and down in the sea, up and down, his face getting paler every time. That tired look made Udian even more worried. Otherwise, just chop the kelp? Can I help you do it together? This little cub must not drown in the sea. If anything happens, let these old men handle it. For example, if you ask Elder Fahim to communicate with kelp and ask for the absorption of specified substances, it won't even take a minute. No. I've found the trick. Gretel shook his head in the water. He used the water generating technique to condense a fresh water ball, drank a few gulps, and was taken down by Cyrilla again. He has already discussed with these kelp how to make kelp rich in iodine as much as possible. The problem now is to provide as much natural force as possible to allow them to complete the enrichment work and make up for the loss of the leaves when they are cut. A faint green light shone from Gretel's palm, and he pressed it on the nearest main stem of kelp. Breathing, 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 the surrounding sea waves shook gently, driving the power of nature to converge on him. Phew, although these guys are just very low-level algae creatures, they are really not merciless at all when they extort power from him. Gretel was busy at the beach, communicating, persuading, supplying strength, and pinching leaves. After struggling for 2 full days, I finally returned to the post in the Gyutang bird with several hundred kilograms of kelp on my back. How do you feel? Is it okay? I know that communicating with a few kelps will definitely be okay for a child like you who is naturally pampered. Elder Fahim greeted them with a smile. Greet made a sad face. Elder, these kelps are so stupid. Don't dislike any plant or animal, they are all our friends. Elder Fahim instantly started preaching mode. Greet listened respectfully. After a long time, he finally found an opening and ran away. I'll make the medicine. Incinerate, dissolve, purify. React, react again, purify again. Check the properties, check the content, and then fix the solution into solid tablets. Take 1 tablet a day, once every 24 hours, no more, no less. Gretel grabbed Idian and said earnestly. Take the first tablet within 12 hours before entering the contaminated area, and then take 1 tablet every 24 hours. Do not stop taking the medicine. After entering the contaminated area, remember to set up the mage's cabin into 3 isolated areas. You must take off your armor and decontaminate it before you can enter the inner area to eat and sleep. Idian nodded patiently. After finally waiting for Greet to finish speaking, he said hello to the elder, turned around and left. 500 pounds of lead armor. This time when he enters the elf secret realm, if his injuries don't improve significantly, let's see how he hits this cub when he comes back. Elder Fahim followed him to the edge of the outpost and watched him go away. When the elf warrior disappeared into the woods, when he looked back at Gretel, his face had changed into a solemn expression. Gretel. What should I say, Elder? Greet immediately paid full attention. Are you going to treat Ms. Jasmine's father? To be honest, he still hasn't understood the thick medical records that span decades. It's not that I haven't finished reading it, but that many of the contents fall into the category of I recognize every word, and then there's nothing more. The description of elves' magic and description of physical conditions was a completely new system for Gretel, and he needed to learn everything from scratch. How about bypassing the records of the elves and treating it yourself? He cannot use the seal of the ancient tree to detect the patient's physical condition now. Greet, your pills are very good, very cheap, and very practical. To Greet's surprise, Elder Fahim did not mention the patient, but praised the potassium iodide pills. But, is there any way we can make it better? For example, can your medicine and the elf secret medicine be used together? And, why does your medicine work? Suppose Greet's medicine has a protection power of 5 and the elf secret medicine has a protection power of 3. So, how protective can it be if the two drugs are used together? 8. Or 5. Or just bad luck with only 2. Or maybe you are very lucky and can get 15. This can definitely be studied, Greet replied without hesitation. He touched his space bag. There were several large bottles of potassium iodide pills in the space bag, and he replenished the stock of kelp. Elder, as long as you don't feel bad about the rabbit. Elder, if we repeat the animal experiment, we will definitely be able to do it. Are you going to kill the rabbit again? Elder Fahim's old cheek twitched, and his eyebrows and beard trembled together. Gretel spread his hands helplessly. Then what's the solution? You can't necessarily let the human natives or elves be the test subjects and then dissect them, right? I can't do this kind of thing. The elder shook his head again and again, sighed again and again. In the end, we had no choice but to start the experiment again according to Gretel's design plan. Rabbits that have been fed elf secret medicine and potassium iodide tablets are briefly placed in a radiation environment and taken out after a day or two. Some of them are raised, and their health status is observed and recorded by the elders. In the other part, Gretel wielded the butcher knife without any mercy. In another open space far away from the shade of ancient trees, Greet set up an anatomy room alone and caught all his rabbits. The dissecting room is divided into 2 rooms, the inner and outer rooms, separated by 1 centimeter thick lead plates. In the inner room, a secret eye is fixed above the operating table, under the shadowless lamp. The dark gold skeleton one edge holds the scalpel and cuts it off according to Gretel's control. In the outer room, Greet hid nervously behind the lead plate, staring at the light screen without blinking. He also freed up one hand to hold Sarah tightly, preventing her from getting closer at all costs. Don't go in. Just wait and see outside. I'm fine. I'm a dragon. I'm not afraid of this thing. It's okay not to be afraid. Safety operating procedures must be followed no matter what. This is for your own good and the good of others. Be good and obey. The more he spoke, the softer his voice became, and the more he spoke, the more quietly his brows furrowed. Sarah was still squirming around at first, but gradually stopped making trouble. She gently pulled him and asked in a low voice. What's the matter? Is it my illusion? I always feel that controlling onekin in a polluted room is not so smooth, the transmission of mental power seems to be covered with a veil, and it seems to be interfered by something. Really? I'll feel it too. No need to try, a loud voice suddenly sounded behind them. Elder Fahim strode in, glanced at the light screen, and quickly changed his gaze. In a polluted place, the penetration and scanning of mental power is indeed not as easy or accurate as outside. The more seriously polluted the place, the more the mental power will be distorted, and it will even be difficult to control the devil. It must be manpower to do it. So, the ray band of nuclear radiation is in the same range as the caster's mental power and magic wave band. This can explain why they can interfere with each other. While Greet was thinking, he controlled onekin to collect blood, muscle tissue, visceral tissue, bones, lymph, thyroid, and brain tissue in an orderly manner. Take each item and put it in a separate lead box and label it. The lead boxes were flown to another operating room separated by lead plates, where invisible servants were responsible for chopping and crushing. Then, Gretel threw it out of the cloud chamber far away and took measurements. The presence of contaminated rays can be detected in the body tissues of rabbits that have been contaminated. The amount is very small, but it does exist. Tissues of the same quality, pollution rays produced by blood, muscle tissue, bone plates, bone marrow, heart, lungs, liver, kidneys, brain tissue, lymph, thyroid, eyeballs, reproductive organs. There was no protection for 12 rabbits. After the autopsy of the irradiated rabbits, it was found that contaminated rays could be detected throughout the rabbit's body, but the amount was especially high in the thyroid gland, sclera. Please. Use your eyes to see which box has the brightest rays. Nothing lights up. Sirara muttered, approaching and standing behind the lead plate, only revealing a pair of eyes to look around. At a glance, there are hundreds of boxes, densely packed next to each other and arranged in squares. This. But Greet, these lights are so dim. They are only as small as this. She raised her right hand, and brought her thumb and index finger close together, and then brought them closer together, until only a tiny bit as narrow as the universe was left between her fingers. Gretel smiled and nodded. Well, it looks hazy. Only a small layer? So, which ones are stronger? The ones I marked. She flicked the mage trick one by one and marked the brighter boxes with colors. After marking, she quickly exited. The invisible servant lifted up the box she had marked and displayed the label. Gretel recorded it under the observation of the arcane eyes across the room. After recording, put them back out of order. Gretel transformed himself and read it again. He called Elder Fahim and asked him to transform and read it again. Through Longan observation and cloud chamber measurement, we can confirm that rabbits that have been exposed to pollution have pollutants in their bodies. This pollutant continues to exist and causes harm to the body. This is why the condition of the organisms continues to worsen after they leave the contaminated area. Reason. This kind of pollutant will be gradually excreted from the body as the body metabolizes it. However, it will be heavily enriched in the thyroid gland. Longan and Yunchi also found a much larger amount of pollutant rays in the thyroid gland. After dissecting a batch of rabbits, dissect another batch of rabbits. Rabbits that had taken potassium iodide pills beforehand were dissected and analyzed one by one. This time, Sarah could see the difference at a glance. Gretel. This batch of, this part, the brightness is much smaller. Yeah. Maybe, that's why we want it. Double monthly pastime. Double monthly pastime. I got 1,410 monthly passes yesterday. Cats love you so much. There are now 2,760 starting monthly votes, and this month's goal is 4,000 votes. Is it possible to reach me out? Everyone, please search the voting basket. If you have any monthly votes, vote for me as soon as possible. From September 28 to October 7, cats will be asked for double monthly tickets. Quickly vote for me, meow. If reached, there will be 4 additional updates. Meow. Thanks to @black and white wind trace for the reward of 100 starting coins.